Yeah, and as far as remote meetings goes, the that only extends as long as the emergency declaration is in place. So right now that only is in place until February 14th or 15th. And we'll see if that gets extended again. And if not, we'll be seeing each other in person.
Jaime, can you check? I'm just sorry. Can you check to see if Olga's in the waiting room?
Mm-hmm. Bob is in the waiting room. And Olga is not. Does Olga, if you're in the waiting room under a different name, just raise your hand.
I haven't heard from George yet. I left him a message earlier, hoping he would come and join me. But I haven't heard back. Has anybody heard from George?
That's
No.
Mm-mm.
Well, we have a quorum.
You
So-
do have a quorum, so.
We do have a quorum.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
In the meeting. Okay, so
All good?
I may have to sign off a little bit early. I'm hoping I don't have to, because I don't think the meeting today hopefully should not go very long. There's really not much going on, so.
it depends on how much you talk, Mark, but if, you know. Olga, Amanda, if it's okay, I guess we can get started.
Yep.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Village of Ossining Zoning Board of Appeals regular meeting of February 8th, 2022. And again, due to the ongoing public health and safety concerns associated with COVID, the board is meeting via video conference using the Zoom platform in accordance with the governor's executive orders. There is no public participation in person tonight. Rather, the public can watch the live meeting online through Zoom. Notice of tonight's meeting was published as required and on the village website. The web notice included instructions for members of the public to access the meeting and participate in any public hearings. Comments will only be taken during the public hearing portions of the meeting as usual. In order to participate, please do the following. Members of the public attending via the Zoom app may use the raise hand feature at the appropriate time if you would like to make a comment. The feature is located at the bottom of the screen, and those attending via telephone can press *9. The meeting host will see that your hand is raised or that you have pressed *9 and will unmute those waiting one at a time so that you can speak. Lastly, comments can be emailed during the meeting to Jaime Martinez, and that's J Martinez, MARTINEZ, at villageofossining.org. Any written comments can be read into the record. Please note that tonight's meeting is being recorded and a video transcript will be provided at a later date. There are a couple of ground rules in order to keep the meeting orderly and ensure that we get a clear recording, so please follow these rules. When you are given access to speak, please state your name and address. If you are speaking during the public hearing, please limit your comments to the matter which is the subject of the hearing. If any speaker is inappropriate, they will be immediately cut off and access will be removed. To the board members, please mute yourselves when you are not speaking. Also to the board members, I will call on you one at a time to speak to avoid everyone speaking at once. If you wish to speak at any time when I am not calling on you, you may also use the raise hand feature or literally just raise your hand so I can see you and call on you. We will use roll call voting for purposes of all board motions. This is to ensure that the record is clear. Thanks to everyone for their patience as we still go through this new way of doing things. As we move forward, we will start with a roll call. So for the benefit of the record, we are going to, when I'm going to ask if Ms. Brosey would take us through the roll call, it makes it a little easier. We will move forward.
Okay. Marlene Cheatham,
Aye.
Kyle Beckley,
Here.
George Bailing is not here. Bob DeRio,
Aye.
Mark Gorechny.
Aye.
Looks like Olga Montez is still not here.
She's having some technical difficulties. She's just sitting there.
Okay, so hopefully she'll join. And then from staff, we have Joseph Agustinelli, Building Inspector, Jaime Martinez, Planning Director, Jamie Kane, Building Department Secretary, and Amanda Brosey, Land Use Council.
Okay. Moving forward. Welcome everyone to the February meeting. And the first thing on the agenda is ZBA 03-2022, 6 Brookville Avenue. Juan Alvarez is the owner. Mr. Alvarez, are you present?
We have a Maria Alvarez here. I believe that's Juan Alvarez, so we're going to bring them over.
And as we have been doing lately at our meetings, I'm going to ask if Mr. Martinez would give us a short rundown of what this
Sure thing. So
application involves.
yes. So the applicant is seeking a side yard setback for the reconstruction and modification of an existing deck. The previous deck was encroaching on the neighbor's yard, but the new one, after it was torn down, the new one is proposed to be set back 6 inches from the property line. The 1 yard setback requirement for the S50 zone is 8 feet, so they would be requesting a 7.5 foot setback. Just for reference, the other side yard is pretty wide, so they don't have any issues with the combined side yard. They don't have any issues with the the coverages or anything else. So it's just the single side yard setback. And there were some unique aspects to the project that sort of necessitated them putting the deck there, but I will let the applicant explain that to you. And with that, Ms. Alvarez, if you want to go ahead.
Yes. Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carlos Panjon. I'm Maria's son. She's the homeowner of the property. The reason why we're petitioning and filing this application for variance is because we purchased the property with the deck already previously built. And what happened was one of the pieces of wood needed to be changed. So recently my father was changing that. And then, there came up an issue that there wasn't a permit filed for the deck, and we didn't know that. So we're trying to, mediate that and figure out, how we can legalize the deck and keep it, because one of the reasons why my parents decided to purchase the home was because there was a deck already built. Now, of course, on the other side yard, there is plenty of space to build the deck, but there's a descending driveway, and there's a lot of plants and other issues there, so it would be cost prohibitive, since we don't have the funds to build a deck over a driveway and move everything that's already there out of the way. We would have to take down some walls to make space for that, and we just want to preserve what is already there. We know that there's zoning issues and code issues, but we would like to file for this variant to see if this is possible. My architect, Tom Harbison, is also here with us. I don't know if you could let him in. He should be connected. He could also explain a little bit more about the technical.
If your architect's here, then they should raise their hand. I don't know if your architect is here actually, unless they're listed under a different name.
Either Thomas Harbison or Tom Harbison.
No, I mean, I know every name on this list except for one, and that is Harriet Weinbaum.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure who that is, but the rest of the names are not that person. I would note that you're doing a pretty good job though, and it's not a super complicated issue, so I don't know if you want to hold anything up here.
Yeah, no, that's mainly the main issue. Of course, if we knew that the deck, had no permit, we would have, had that figured out before we purchased the home. but it's something we ran into after. So, we don't want to take it down. As if we do, there would be a door that sort of exits onto the deck. So we would have to remove that and take care of all of that, since the structure of the home is made so that there could be accessibility for the deck. And yes.
Now, I was going to ask, Jaime, can you show the other picture, the picture of the deck itself,
Yeah.
photo?
I think we did send a few pictures.
I think it gives a better look of
Yeah. It is very close, but
So this is the neighbor's yard here.
Yeah.
And this is the deck. And previously it was encroaching a little bit, but I think you've sort of since then brought it back after. So a little kind of background on the project. So I think there was some sort of a call by either, the police or by the 911 or some sort of house or the neighbor. They saw this work being performed at the time. The applicant was then at that point told that there was no permit for that. They needed to get a permit for it. When they came to file for the permit, they found out that they had these issues. So they were asked to get a survey prepared. They prepared the survey, they submitted all their materials. And so that's kind of the genesis of how this property started. That's why it looks the way it does, where it's sort of kind of half constructed. They had started the project and did not, realize they needed a permit because I think not to speak for them, but I think in their mind, they were just replacing something that was already there. And they were unaware that it was not allowed and not totally on their yard. So, and we have Olga, by the way.
Okay.
Is that correct? Am I conveying that accurately, sir?
Yes, that's correct. There was a call for a fire actually, and we were just replacing some wood, but it appeared as we were building the deck, but the deck was pre-existing. There is a document that also shows that the deck was pre-existing. So
Yeah.
you can show that as well if needed.
So this is the survey of the original property, and you can see how the deck used to overhang onto the neighbor's property.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the board? If there are no questions from the board, may I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, Kyle. Oh,
May I have a second?
Second, Mark Rich.
Is there anyone in the audience to speak on this project?
We have a Harriet Weinbaum.
Okay, Ms. Weinbaum.
If you could unmute yourself, Ms. Weinbaum.
Sorry.
Ms. Wein-
Yeah, I live at number 12. I've been here almost 50 years. And I know that in those years, I don't think anybody needed a permit to stick up a deck. They were happening all over. So I don't think that, that was the problem at the time. But I'm really happy to hear that they want to have it legally put in and constructed properly, because it's pretty high up there, and where I'm sitting on my patio, I don't want to hear anybody falling down. So I really think it's a great idea that they are doing the right thing and coming to the zoning board, and I have no objections to you approving their deck.
Thank you, Ms. Weinbaum.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this project?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Weinbaum. If there is no one else to speak on this project, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Bob.
Second? I think I
second,
saw
Kyle.
Kyle. If there's no objection to close the public hearing, then the public hearing would be closed by unanimous consent. Public hearing is closed. I believe at this point, we are up to the point where we would do the, go through the process of the area variance, and the variance is 7.5 feet. But I do want to just for clarification, Jaime, do you still have the dimensions of the deck itself? Because it's a very narrow, long deck, I believe.
Yeah, I do. Just give me a second. It's so it changes dimensions in a couple of different places. The length of the deck is, let me just pull it out here. So the length of the deck is about 15 feet and by 3.5 inches, more or less. This is the old deck that used to encroach. Now, the new deck at its skinniest point is about 6 feet 6 inches. And at its widest point, I want to say is probably close to 9 feet. I mean, I don't have a measurement, an exact measurement for it, but it can't be much more.
Does the applicant have that?
Yes, my architect is trying to connect right now. He can hear through the phone, but he's trying to connect for the meeting. He's having some difficulties. He can.
Is there a plan you can direct Jaime to pull up that will show the dimensions of the deck?
Yeah, we have some drawings that we submitted. I don't know if.
Yeah, I have those up. I mean, so you can see here, it's sort of 15 feet, 3.5 inches.
You're not sharing, Jaime.
You're not sharing, Jaime.
I apologize.
That's okay.
That's not making any sense. So the length from so here's the door to the end. So if you run the length from one end to the other, according to their measurement here, it's 15 feet, 3.5 inches. And from the sort of skinnier edge, the measurement is 6 feet 6 inches. And so the gap from the wall of the house to the edge of the deck is 4 feet 9 inches, plus the door, which I'm assuming is about 30 inches. So, you tack that on top, and then that's how you sort of get to about 8 feet or, 8, 9 feet. I don't have I do have a bunch of dimensions.
I wasn't looking for exact measurements. I just wanted to show that it wasn't a very large, like it wasn't a 50-foot deck. It was rather long and narrow. So if we're ready to move forward, thank you, Jaime.
Would you like me to go through the factors?
Yes, ma'am.
And I just want to be sure, Olga, you jumped in at like 7:08. Do you fully, you fully feel like you have a sense of this application for purposes of going through the analysis and voting and all that?
I do. I just wanted to make sure that the size of it was within, if the permit was asking for any special considerations, but with that last clarification, I think we're good.
Yeah, they've pulled it back to within the property boundaries. So,
right.
Okay. So the first factor is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance.
If anything, it'll be better because it'll be all done, above board, so to speak, and then it's not going to create any significant change, because I think I forget her name, but the person at the public meeting said that pretty much every other house there has a deck, and it's only 2 feet, so I don't think it's a big change.
I agree with Mark. I don't think it has an adverse effect.
Same. I agree with Mark.
Okay. And I also agree with Mark. Just to note that they did make one major change, is that they actually pulled the deck over onto their own property, which then again, is another plus in keeping it off of the neighbor's land. So I think that was something that they, it was a good change to the overall application.
Yeah,
Just to answer the question everybody has, I actually have the plan on my computer. It's actually at the narrowest point now that it's compliant where it's on their property and not over the property line. It's actually 6 foot 6 inches in width by 15 feet 3 inches in length. So it's pretty narrow. It's only six
It's
and a half.
narrow and long.
Yeah, I mean, one side closer to the front is about 2 feet more. It's like 8 foot 6, but in the back, because the property is kind of on an angle, it narrows down to 6.5 feet.
okay. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks,
And just
Joe.
so everybody's clear, they're getting a 7 foot 5 inch variance. So they're leaving
No, they're getting a 7 foot 6 inch variance.
7 foot 6 inch.
7.5 foot
Gotcha.
variance. 7 foot
That's
6.
my bad. Sorry, I had my notes wrong. You're right. Yeah. Okay, next factor. The benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
No, because it's not only cost prohibitive as they outline, and that's reasonable because they'd have to build over the driveway on the other side where there's no door built. But they're using the pre-existing structure and they're just fixing it up to make it safer and within their property line. So no.
Yeah, I agree.
I also have to say, if you're building a deck over the driveway, you also run the risk of somebody running into a post or something happening that could be more detrimental. So putting it where it is actually the safer side of the building.
I agree.
Agreed.
All right. The next is the requested area variance is substantial.
No.
And I would probably say it is substantial. 7, to give it an area variance of 7 feet, 6 inches in a narrow space, only leaving 6 inches is probably pretty substantial, but I don't think it's determinative in this case.
I agree. I think it's substantial, but has no factor in making a negative judgment. Also considering the neighbor whose property it abuts is okay with it.
All right.
But just to put that into perspective, to make it compliant, you would have no deck at all if it's only 6.5 feet wide. So
Right.
even if they made it narrower, you'd have a deck at 4 feet, 3 feet, and you'd still be granting a variance. So.
Right. That's a good point. The next factor is whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
I say no, because they're making it smaller and not really changing any of the lower structure on the ground. So I say no.
No. It's a deck that has been there, even though it did not have it was not a permitted deck in the past. It is now being, it's actually being corrected. So I think that's a plus. Now, if they have 100 people on that small deck, then we may have a problem, but as long as they keep it down to a few people, we're good.
All right. And last but not least, the alleged difficulty was self-created.
No.
No,
That way.
that's very self-explanatory.
No, it was something they inherited from the prior owners, and I think that they're correcting something that was done prior to their purchasing the property.
Okay.
We have gone through all of the factors, and with that in mind, may I have a motion to grant this variance for 7.6 feet? Okay.
Motion
7.5, right?
variance for 7.6 feet.
Is it 7.5 or 7.6? Or does
It's 7.5 or 7 feet 6 inches.
6 inches? Okay, so 7 feet 6 inches. Okay.
So moved. Bob.
May I have a second?
I second.
All those in roll call vote. Sorry.
That's okay. Marlene Cheatham,
Aye.
Kyle Beckley,
Aye.
Bob Doraya,
Aye.
Mark Gorechny,
Aye.
and Olga Montez.
Aye.
Great.
All right, motion carried. Enjoy building your deck and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye. We are up to continuing business of the board, ZBA 21-2021, which is 138, 140 Croton Avenue. At this point, I am recusing myself from this application for, and so it will be Mr. Durayo who will be leading this part of the meeting. I'm going to ask Jaime, because I'm going to mute myself out, if you just kind of put up in the chat when I'm ready to come back in, okay?
Okay, will do.
Thanks.
Jaime, would you give us the summary of this project?
Yes, I will. So I am going to first bring in George Jacquemart. He's the traffic analyst, or he's more than a traffic analyst. That's sort of minimizing what he is, but he did the review of the traffic and parking study. So first, the kind of the breakdown about this project for tonight. I think the main goal of tonight is really to try to receive comments from the board to send to the planning board concerning the seeker review. So hopefully you're in a position to provide comments after this meeting. Depending on how the conversation around the parking traffic study goes, you may want to give those comments today, or you may want to defer. But I think we'll have to see how the conversation goes. We received a review memo from BFJ today regarding the parking and traffic analysis. And it was sort of their review of their parking study and traffic study. So we have George Jacquemart here today to go over that. And once he's done, I think going over his details, you're going to want to bring the applicant in to kind of discuss it. But as far as official actions today, you can open a public hearing, but there are no matters to be decided today, as seeker review is still ongoing by the planning board. So with that, George, do you want to talk a little bit about your memo? Would you like me to pull it up, or do you want to share your screen?
Okay, good evening. I guess you can hear me. I'm George Jacquemart. I'm the principal at BFJ Planning for transportation and parking work. I'm a traffic engineer by training and a civil engineer by training. And I have worked almost 50 years in transportation planning and traffic. So we did review the memo that was submitted, the two memos that were submitted by the applicants, traffic engineer, Kimley Horn. There was a first memo on traffic and parking impacts, and then there was a parking update memo. And we also looked at the architectural drawings for the submittal. There are 4 items that I'd like to talk about this evening, just to give you a short summary of our review. One is the traffic impacts in general of this proposed project. The second one is the question of a direct access onto Croton Avenue. And the third one is the parking demand. And then the last one is the related to the design of the parking decks. So in terms of traffic impact analysis, we reviewed the material that was submitted by Kimley Horn. We have some very minor kind of disagreements on some of the assumptions, but in general, we do agree. And in general, it is, we're talking about a total of 77 apartments, 76 senior apartments and 1 apartment for a super in the building. And, these are all senior units for people that are 62 or older. So it is in general, I would consider that as a relatively low traffic generator. And the analysis that was performed by the applicant's traffic engineer in general is acceptable. We agree with the conclusions that there are no significant impacts. There's no need for significant mitigation measures or changes to the street infrastructure or the intersections. The second point, and that's probably the most complicated point, is the question of the direct access onto Croton Avenue. And are the zoning board members familiar with the site plan that was submitted? I could maybe, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page, I could bring up an exhibit that shows the location.
Sure, you want to share your screen?
Yes, let me see how I can do that. Share screen. Okay, there. And I will bring up this exhibit. So this is an aerial, you can see the aerial map here, oops. And so the proposed site is on the south side of Croton Avenue between Watson and Prospect Avenue. And the proposed plan shows a direct access onto Croton Avenue. It would actually be an exit only, meaning vehicles could exit directly, through a driveway connection to the garage onto Croton Avenue. There's also an access point on Prospect and an access point on Watson Avenue. New York State DOT had the first reaction and asked whether this access, the direct access on Croton Avenue was needed, because they say the site conditions are not ideal. They do not meet state standards. So they asked whether that particular driveway could be eliminated. The downside of eliminating this direct access is that the vehicles, because there are two parking decks here, this direct, and they're one over the other, the direct access that leads to Croton Avenue is at the lower level of the parking deck, and that particular parking deck connects also to Prospect Avenue. So if we eliminate the driveway, the direct connection to Croton, it means that those vehicles that would exit here would have to exit to Prospect Avenue and then turn from Prospect onto Croton. And the intersection of Prospect and Croton has actually worse site conditions than the site conditions that would exist at the direct access onto Croton. So that's a little bit the disadvantage if we eliminate that particular driveway, that we shift cars to a location that has worse condition. The best site conditions are on Watson Avenue. And they're kind of perfect site conditions if you want, to the left and to the right. So that is a key question, and there's no perfect solution to this. We looked at it. We also looked at the accidents that occur at this intersection versus the accidents that occur at the Watson Avenue intersection. And strangely enough, they're exactly the same for the last, I think it's over 3 years. There were 3 accidents at each intersection. And one of those 3 accidents was an injury accident that was true for Prospect Avenue and was exactly the same for Watson Avenue. So that, one conclusion we can draw is that even though the site conditions are worse at the intersection of Prospect and Croton, it's not reflected in the safety impact at that particular intersection. The question is, why does that happen? Maybe it is because people just pay more attention because the site conditions are more difficult. So that's basically the situation. The other part that I feel questions the value of this direct access is that there are very, very few cars utilizing it. The traffic study that was submitted basically says there would be 4 cars that would use it in the morning peak hour. And I estimate there would be also 4 cars in the afternoon peak hour. There could be 1 or 2 more cars depending if the retail vehicles park in that same deck or not. So, is it worthwhile to have an extra access point, an extra driveway, an extra interruption of the sidewalk for 4 vehicles in the peak hour? And that's 1 vehicle every 15 minutes. So our recommendation would be to eliminate this driveway. And yes, then cars would exit onto Prospect Avenue. And then we do suggest that the applicant look at mitigation measures to mitigate the site conditions at this particular intersection. I will bring up a photo that was taken. This here, you can see this particular photo shows the condition at Prospect Avenue. So this is, if you were in the middle of Prospect Avenue and Croton, looking to the left, to the west here, you can see the site conditions are very difficult. It's very, very short sight distance. So among the mitigation measures that we propose or recommend is first, cut back as much as possible this particular, vegetation. And it's the same for the sidewalk. If you look further west, it's a very narrow sidewalk and there is vegetation kind of growing over the wall, that should be cut back. So if you have a sidewalk that's that narrow, there should not be any landscape that kind of overflows into the right of way of the sidewalk. The other mitigation measure that we recommend could be to suggest a mirror that would be on the opposite side of Croton, on the north side of Croton Avenue, where the bus stop is. There's a bus stop sign. There could be a mirror there where then the drivers can see to the left whether there's a vehicle coming or not. Another mitigation measure would be to have a flashing light or some warning sign that says no intersection with limited sight distance. There's specific signs that can be set up. So we recommend that the applicant work with DOT because New York State DOT obviously owns the road, to find out what the best mitigation measure is. We feel, even though it's not a perfect solution, it's a better solution than having the driveway in the middle. It will improve conditions for all the vehicles that today use Prospect Avenue to make a turn onto Croton, so everybody would benefit from those mitigation measures. The last mitigation measure that we propose is that, because they're basically two parking garages, two decks, as I mentioned earlier. There's the lower deck that that connects to Prospect, and there's the upper deck that connects to Watson. So the other mitigation measure that we propose is that those vehicles, typically in an apartment building like this, you always have cars that leave every day, even senior citizens, some of those people that are 62 or more, they will still work. So some of them will still use their car on a regular basis. So the people that use a car on a regular basis should be assigned to the parking lot that's on the upper level that connects to Watson, where we have good site conditions. And those people that have a car that they use only maybe once or twice a week would be assigned to the lower level to minimize the amount of vehicles that use Prospect Avenue and maximize the amount of vehicles that use Watson Avenue, where the site conditions are better. And if the applicant, will include some of the retail, there's a relatively small retail space included in the lower level of the project. Those retail customers, whether they're employees or customers, should also park on the upper level that connects to Watson Avenue. So that's the issue related to that driveway, the direct connection to Croton Avenue, where we suggest, to eliminate that, and also to have better pedestrian conditions along that sidewalk. There's going to be a relatively nice pedestrian sidewalk condition there, and it's preferable not to interrupt it with the driveway. So that's our recommendation on that access to Croton Avenue. The next point is the parking demand. We reviewed the material that was submitted by the applicant. They submitted surveys that were done at very similar projects regionally here in the New York region. They also referred to the statistics that are collected by our kind of transportation industry. And we disagree with some of the assumptions. The applicant, each of these data that was submitted for a variety of sites, like for instance, one source of data was surveys that were undertaken at 10 different sites in the New York region. And these were all sites of senior housing and affordable senior housing communities. And so the piece of information that was submitted submits the peak parking ratio for each of them. And then the applicant calculates the average of those peak parking ratios, of the 10 ratios, and suggests that that's the best statistic to use for this application. I disagree with that, because if you use the average, there's a 50% chance that it may be higher, 50% chance that it may be lower. So typically we recommend that a higher ratio be used, which we explain in our submittal, but still there is enough parking in the project. Our calculation is, based on the ratio that we recommend, is that there would be a parking demand for 65 parking spaces in the building. And that assumes that there would not be any sharing. If there is shared parking between the residents and the retail component, and the retail component is very small, there's only 7 parking spaces, if I remember correctly. Yes, 7 spaces needed for the retail component. Then, they would only need like 58 parking spaces. So we feel that, there is enough parking proposed. The total number, I forgot what they propose, is like 79, if I remember correctly, for both of those decks. And we feel that that is an adequate parking supply. So we agree with the applicant in that regard, even though we have some disagreement with the numbers and the methodology. But in general, there are enough parking spaces. The last comment we have is on the particular design. We do not feel that you can have a parking space that's immediately adjacent to the wall. So we talk about the end parking spaces on each of these decks. Typically when we have an end parking space, we do allow for some more room so that the vehicle that pulls out of that last parking space has room to turn and to make the maneuver. So we recommend that 2 spaces be eliminated in the lower deck. And in the upper deck, which we try to optimize the use, we recommend that those 2 parking spaces at the end of the parking aisle be designated for compact spaces or small car spaces. So to make it easier to get and safer to get in and out of those spaces. So that's our memo, our general review results and our recommendations. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do we
There must
need
be questions.
this and then send it to the planning board, or is there any action this board has to take on what we just heard? Amanda?
It was for your reference, especially because you have a parking variance to grant after the secret process is done. We just wanted you to be fully aware that BFJ had reviewed the applicant's parking study and these are their conclusions, so that you're up to speed. And if you want to, take it into account when you're providing comments to the planning board.
Okay. I would like to add to our comments to the planning board that last 2 recommendations regarding the 2 parking spaces on the upper level being made designated for compact cars only, and the removal of the 2 spaces on the first level in order to make access easier, that we add those to our recommendations.
All right, I'm taking that down.
Okay.
Does anybody else on the board have any comments?
This is Kyle. My only question is, will each household in the building be limited to 1 vehicle?
We do have the applicant here to answer that question. There have actually been some changes to the project up to now, and I know that they have, I'm sure they have a response to the memo as well as an answer for that question. So, I defer to you, Bob, but when you're ready, I can bring them over.
But before we go to them, does anybody else have any questions that we would be putting to the applicant? Anybody on the board? If not, then let's have them.
Okay. Bring them over now. George, do you mind if I stop your sharing?
There you go.
So they have a pretty big team here. I'm bringing over several people.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Bob, how's it going?
Good. Nice to see you.
You too, my friend. I can start off, Bob, if you'd like, Mr. Chairman, by answering the last question. That yes, we typically assign 1 space per dwelling unit. Yes, so that's the answer to that. And our traffic engineer had, I guess, all of 3 hours to review this report. We received it late this afternoon, but he's also prepared to respond to this report, which I think is very, very, I think it's helpful. And I think it's well thought out. And I think it'll help to make for a better project. And we're more than willing to work on a number of those issues. I will say that in the studies that we provided, my team provided, in particular, Kimberly Horn, John Canning, those other senior housing projects were 55 and older, and our project is 62 and older, and the average age at our project is 70. So it's a little bit different in terms of volume. You know, someone who's 70 isn't necessarily, particularly these days with what we're doing right now. People aren't running out in the morning, let alone seniors. That doesn't make a lot of sense. There may be one or two, but most of the people I know, even my age, although I am a senior and qualified technically to live there, we're not running out every day in the morning at 8 a.m. as we used to. So I think with those comments, again, basically we have very little disagreement with George's analysis, and I think he actually made some really good comments that will help us to refine the project a bit better. So, Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I'll ask John Canning, our traffic engineer, to just to very briefly go through what he's digested and what we're recommending and what our next steps are.
And also thank you, George, for your thoughtful and insightful review. We do agree with your conclusion that the project is a low traffic generator and that the 79 parking spaces is more than enough to accommodate project parking. As Joe indicated, we will agree to the recommendations regarding parking. And I just would like to note that we've scheduled a meeting with New York State DOT tomorrow morning to discuss the matter, which obviously is not related to the parking variance, it's the issue of the driveway. But we are meeting with them tomorrow morning. We expect to discuss the issues George has raised, and we will report back to the planning board.
Good. I have a question.
Bob, I just want to chime in on that. He left an important piece out, and that whole issue, I think the major issue here is the access point, you know, and whether or not we balance which way we go with this. And we're going to discuss that in great detail with DOT on our Zoom call tomorrow, because at the end of the day, they're the ones with jurisdiction, not you, not me. It's DOT. I think that rhymes. Not you, not me, it's DOT. So it's going to be up to them anyway. It's not our call. So they're going to know the recommendations. And I think George very eloquently discussed the balancing act, health and safety and the like. And we're going to do, I can tell you as the owner, as the applicant, what's in the best unit, the best interest of the overall community. It's not always, you know, an easy answer, but we're going to do whatever it is to make it work. We want it to be safe. I have seniors here. I don't have, you know, 18-year-old kids. And I think there's something to be said for George's analysis with respect to, I know when I come up onto a bad sightline turn, I pay much more attention, right? We get to that corner. So I think while it's inherently more dangerous, people inherently pay much more attention when they're at that intersection. I know I do. Mm-hmm. And some people at an intersection where they can see all the way are lackadaisical or looking at their phone. So anyway, that's my non-professional analysis.
Joe, I have a question. Have you guys considered providing like a van or a jitney to take folks from the project to the grocery store and doctor's appointments, which would, if people were going in groups, it would cut down on the amount of vehicle traffic? Have you considered that as an option?
Yes. And I will say this, there's a number of things we're willing to do, George, as the applicant. We've got to go through this multi-tiered hurdle process. Mm-hmm. We've got to get the EIS done, which is, from my patience taking much too long. Much too
I
long.
want to correct you there, Joe. There's no EIS being prepared right now. There's no.
No. The neg deck. The neg deck. So
You're going
that-
through the secret process.
yeah, that analysis for me, George, it's taking much too long. Bob, it's taking much too long. Be that as it may, once we get through that, you will have the opportunity to act as a board. And so I'm willing to make a number of concessions, but I'm willing to make them when I know I have a deal.
I get
I'm
that.
not going to make them in the absence, as you wouldn't, if you're a prudent businessman, in the absence of knowing we're going to move forward. So would I consider it? Yes.
Cool. I would also like to commend you guys, and I don't think I've ever done this before, for the way you took into consideration the comments by the board at previous meetings and the public, specifically that you guys are no longer applying for a variance for the living spaces, that every single apartment is going to meet the new village code. And I want to thank you for being so responsive to our request in that regard. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out, Mr. Durham, that, I know that you had brought that up at the last meeting, and we worked very stringently trying to figure out how to get those to work. We have submitted them to Joe. I saw him on here before. Oh, he's there. His camera's off, but we did submit them to Joe for his review as well. And that actually, we reduced the number of units, which then assists with our parking numbers as well. So we're beyond the original 1-to-1 ratio. We've continued to include that.
I can't thank you enough. I am very happy to see the work that you have done and how responsive you have been. I'm the first one to complain when people don't listen to the public's needs, and you have. So thank you for that. Does anybody on the board have any other questions for the applicant?
I have just the one, and please forgive me, I'm still learning. But when we were talking about the exit on Prospect and the visibility, and I don't officially know if presently there is a no left turn there. Would there be one with increased traffic? And I know DOT has the last word, but when we saw that picture of that turn, no, it would be my guess that no left turn would be a no-brainer there, that anyone exiting would automatically have to go right.
So, Ms. Montez, the answer to the question is that there is currently no left turn prohibition there.
Okay.
As Mr. Jacquemer indicated, the number of additional trips that the project would add there would be modest, and the accident rate is not any higher than at Watson Avenue. So the assumption is that there is not presently a problem that needs to be fixed. Most accidents are human error from not paying attention.
Okay, thank you.
Just wanted also, before you perhaps open it up, we also included in a packet with you, we have done some additional renderings, as well as have included an extensive amount of additional buffering and screening on the south and the back of the project, with the largest mature evergreen trees that you can purchase retail. So we're talking about sort of like 15-foot trees in the back, a whole additional row of them, which will almost raise to the level of the corresponding single-family buildings in the back. So we think we've been responsive and heard the comments of various of the public in that respect, and have provided that information to the planning board. I think they were very happy that we did that.
Yeah, and we've also, you haven't seen them yet. We're not able to share them this evening, but as was mentioned, we've done additional studies that have been requested from the public in regards to site views from 4 Watson and 6 Watson. So we have incorporated those into the next planning board package that was submitted yesterday. So those will become public in the very near future.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, and it's our, I mean, it's our hope, and I think we've pretty much provided the planning board with all the information they've requested at this point. So they are now, we believe, in deliberations on secret, and we hope to, the next time we return to you will be after a secret determination, and that will give your board the opportunity to, you know, vote on the merits of our variance application. So we will be back, and by that time, you'll also know that we've taken many of the mitigation measures and incorporated that in on the parking, which, as Joe mentioned, we just read the memo 3 hours ago, but I think we agreed with a lot of the information that was in there, and obviously felt good about the one issue that's before you, the parking one, that they found that, you know, we would meet parking demand. So that obviously, from your point of view on the parking variance, is a critical issue, and we're happy to see that in the memo and the analysis.
Very cool. Does anybody else on the board have any questions for the applicant at this time? No. Okay. Jaime, are there people from the public here who would like to speak? Do we need to open a public meeting?
You need to open up a public hearing to do that first. There is somebody here that may or may not want to speak.
Okay.
So,
I'd like to have a motion to open the public hearing, please.
So moved, Mark Rechny.
I
Okay.
second it.
Thank you. Public meeting is now open.
going once, going twice.
Anybody?
No hands are raised. Then that's it. Nope. We don't
I'd
have
like
any
to
raised
make a
hands.
motion to close the public.
No, I would just
Close it.
adjourn for now.
We'll adjourn the public hearing until next meeting. Motion.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So moved, Kyle.
Second, Mark Rechny.
Great.
Excuse me.
Anybody not in favor of closing the public hearing?
Adjourned.
Great. Then-
I mean,
then
yeah,
it's closed.
it's
Um,
adjourned.
It's adjourned.
Yeah.
Until the next meeting. Thank you, guys.
Somewhere in between.
It's adjourned.
We'll be talking
Somewhere
about.
between that square and that corner and that square.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
As a point, I'm sorry, Amanda. As a point of information, I just want to keep everybody as plugged in as possible. We have been notified by DEC that they have accepted this project into the brownfield cleanup program. Formally, we'll be getting a letter. It was verbal, but we'll be getting a letter. And once we do about an agreement, actually, a brownfield cleanup agreement, that's a really important part of this project. Is it's a reclamation project also.
Yes.
We're reclaiming what is clearly a contaminated site. When you look at the details of how contaminated it is, I think it'll really resonate as to why it makes sense to, do this all at once. So we're going to be mandated to clean up this site. And once I get that, I'll share it with you, Council, Amanda, and with all of the boards. So you're plugged into all of this. And we'll also, of course, in real time, keep you apprised of how things go. We've gone with DOT, we've gone back and forth with them. So, over the last week, with our responses back and forth, including the SWEP and other things. So this is not a new discussion, it's ongoing. So we'll keep you apprised.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think at this time, Amanda, we have some housekeeping to do. There's a letter that
Yeah.
we have to send. Could you explain what we're doing so that we can vote on that, I think?
You don't really need to, okay, yes. So, I had put together a draft letter based on your January comments, to send to the planning board on, issues or concerns you might have that you wanted to make the planning board aware of. Obviously, things have changed a decent amount, based on, changes the applicant has made to the plans, to aspects of the project. So based on your January comments, what I understood to be what you wanted to share with the planning board was concerns about the habitable space variances, which are no longer an issue.
Right.
So I'm not going to include that in the letter. I'm going to delete that. You were concerned about parking and the fact that parking availability is a village-wide issue. the fact that 79 spaces are being proposed, but 108 are required. That is just the calculus of the parking variance here. And I think that the board had expressed whether the parking calculations that are in the parking study from the applicant fully take into account visitors, staff, of the residential portion of the building, as well as the retail use. Obviously, now we have more information from BFJ, which we did not have before. The planning board will also be in receipt of that information, but they haven't had a chance to see or hear from BFJ yet. And I think that the board was also wondering, as far as parking, whether the applicant's parking study took into account parking restrictions on adjacent streets, and if it didn't, you guys asked for the study to be adjusted accordingly. So that's what I'd hoped the letter would say, not hoped, but what I had planned the letter would say regarding parking. If you feel that any of that is still relevant, we can include that in the letter. If not, we don't have to.
I think my thought is that rather than that, that we ask them to look at the study that George has presented tonight and take into account the recommendations that he's made in that regard. I think that would be more accurate. That's my thought. Do we need to vote on this, or was just a discussion?
We can talk about that. Let's talk about that when we get through the other 2 points, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all.
Okay. Do the other board members have any thoughts on the parking piece? Okay. So I will update, okay. So that needs to be updated to just basically reflect that you want the planning board to review and study the BFJ information and take account their recommendations. That's basically it.
Yes.
Okay. Then the next point that you all had raised to bring up with the planning board was the height issue, which that is still a variance, which is my understanding. At this point, I don't think that has changed. Still 3.5 stories, right?
Right.
Okay. I know a lot has changed over the last month. So basically, I think that your board had just asked that the planning board continue to examine whether the height could be, whether there were better ways to situate or reconfigure the building on the property to lessen potential adverse impacts, given, the size of the building and the size of the property. I don't know that has changed, or if you feel differently at this point about that. It's just kind of a general comment.
That's still on the table to be talked about, and it's good to apprise the planning board that that's a thing they should also be looking at, same as we are. Does anybody on the board have anything to add regarding the height variance?
We know that generally the height structure of the building hasn't changed, but the brief bit we got about the 2 rows of the large conifers that'll be put in the back to help mitigate sound and sightline issues, I think that does go towards helping with that concern.
I agree. What else is there, Amanda?
The last thing that was a very quick comment at the end of that last meeting was about the brownfields issue. And I think it was really just the way I interpreted it. I think that it would be helpful if the applicant can just fully apprise the boards of what the nature of the cleanup is going to be, and kind of help the boards understand the phase 1 and phase 2 reports, so that when the board members are reading those, they understand what they're looking at, understand not just that, okay, here's an update on we're going to the brownfields cleanup program, but what exactly is on the site, what exactly is the cleanup going to look like, so that when the planning board members in particular are looking at those reports down the line and doing their secret review, they have a little more context for what they're reading.
I agree with that. Anybody on the board have a comment on that?
No, I agree. It's important just to lay it out as best as possible, what needs to be remediated, and what will be done to remediate, and how long and what that process will entail. I think that'd be very helpful.
I agree.
So that was it.
Do we need to roll call vote to approve the send this out or no?
I think that we would, I was hoping to give you a final draft of this letter, and had nothing changed, you would have seen that final draft tonight. But now there are changes. It's up to you if you would like me to send you another draft for you to finally approve at the next meeting, or if you'd like to vote, based on how you decided tonight.
I'd say let's get a draft and then we can go from there. Personally, that's what I think, but.
I agree. So we'll table, will we get the draft to the next meeting then?
Okay.
All right.
Amanda, you may want to, on board, at the February planning board meeting, they are going to be focused on these issues. So, I mean, if there's any way, Amanda, give you a draft and you look at it and get it, I think it would be helpful for the planning board to hear this at the February meeting. That's just, that's just my.
Yeah, they have until the 22nd. I mean, it's only the 8th?
Yeah, you still have some time before it
There's
to,
no reason why a draft can't be looked at and, electronically and sent to them. Why delay?
It's up to the board if they want to do that. I'm not gonna,
Amanda, can we do that? Is that appropriate for us to have you send us all the drafts, send our written comments back, and do it that way?
I think that's fine, because you've done your deliberations on this tonight in public. And so really any changes at this point would probably just be wordsmithing in the end. So I think that would be fine.
Folks, anybody on the board?
I agree. Bureaucracy takes a long time anyway, and it's worth it. But in this case, I think it would be better just to see it and us take a little time, review it, and get back so Amanda can send it to the planning board.
Yeah, I don't think we actually need to vote on it as long as we approve it. So I think, if that's fine. Yeah.
Great. Olga, you okay with that?
I'm good with that. Yep.
Then I think that's the plan.
Thank you.
Anything else with this applicant this evening?
I
No. I want to thank you folks for coming. I appreciate all your hard work, and I'd like to turn the chair back over to Marlene Cheatham.
Thank you. Good night.
good night.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Appreciate it.
While we're waiting for Marlene to come back on, what else is on our agenda tonight?
Talk about those adjournments, because I think that's it, right?
We have minutes to approve.
Can we get updates? And then
Yeah, let's just wait until we get Marlene back. Just give me 2 seconds. I'm just trying to chat with her.
Marlene.
I know this will be stated, but I can't vote on the minutes for January, so I'm just going to stay silent.
good. Glad you're aware when you're at a meeting or not, but yeah, that's good.
Was that the meeting? Or was that December that went to like 11? Was that December? Or was that January? Can't remember now.
So January.
January.
No.
I mean, January didn't go that late. No.
No, it was December.
Yeah, that was
I wasn't part of December, so it must have been that. Yeah.
You guys are dropping like flies.
That was a rambunctious meeting. I think that's one professional way to.
Good.
Hello.
You have the con.
Okay, I take it we are up to adjourn matters. So adjourned for tonight is ZBA 2021 70 Croton Avenue. Is that correct? So we will be putting that on for the March meeting.
So I don't know if they specifically requested just a month's adjournment or adjourned till, yes, but it's put over until March at this point.
So do we need a motion to adjourn that one until March? No. Okay.
No.
And then again, adjourned for tonight is ZBA 2021 34 State Street. That again is adjourned.
Specifically by the applicant.
By the applicant at this point. So once again, we will put it on for the March meeting unless something else is determined by the applicant before then. And lastly, adjourned is ZBA 27-2021, which is for State Street. And that is adjourned until the March meeting as well. So with that being said, we are up to the approval from the January 11th, 2022 meeting. And I believe, Kyle? Somebody wasn't there.
Can't vote.
I was not there yet.
Okay.
Motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Oh, second, sorry.
Roll call vote.
Marlene Cheatham,
Aye.
Bob Dario,
Aye.
Mark Gorechny,
Aye.
and Olga Montez.
Aye.
Okay,
And one abstain.
yeah.
With that being said, the motion to adopt the minutes for the January meeting are carried through. If there is any other business of the board? If there is no other business, then I make a motion. Sorry, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And if there's no objection to adjourning the meeting, then our meeting for tonight is adjourned. We ask that everybody have a great night, stay safe, and we'll see you in March. Wow, the months are going by quickly.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Back to the warm times.
Good night.
Yay.
Take care. Good night.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.